So, guys, thanks. I'm going to be talking about a topic that is so dear to education and to teachers as well as students in the 21st century, because everything that we do surrounds um, around how we work together and how we get people involved with the environment as well as making the learning process a great one. So we're going to talk about creating an inclusive and equitable learning environment. It's going to be better for teaching and learning in this dispensation. So I have a few questions and I'm going to share quickly so that we can begin engaging and having the discussion to continue from there. So the first question has to do with this. What are the greatest barriers to inclusive education in your community? You know, there are several barriers that we face as it relates to education. So within the next 1 minute, we'll the next question within the next 1 minute. So yeah, I like what you mentioned, Odili. I hope I got the pronunciation right. And Princess as well. I like what you mentioned. Outdated curriculum and lack of resources. Lack of resources and outdated curriculum are some of the barriers that have stalled the process of improving educational outcomes in Africa as a whole, because our our region has suffered a lot as it relates to what we've been able to achieve educational wise and how we've been able to carry out the educational process. So our next question has to do with this. What roles should the governments and local communities play in improving inclusivity? What roles do you think the governments and local communities should play in improving inclusivity? I know we have a lot of things we can share, because most times we go about sharing different ideas on the different roles that government should play in improving the educational sector. I want to just share a few of them so that we understand where we at as it relates to this topic, because it's important. If we must improve education outcomes, we need to understand the different roles that we need to play. And speaking about roles, I'm just being reminded of what we intend to do. Of educational equipment, great fit, which is really great. Lack of educational equipment. This is really important. Poor infrastructure and lack of finances. Great, because teachers are some of the people who are least paid, and infrastructure is nowhere to be found. Which there are awesome, really awesome answers you guys are giving so far. Which are important things that we need to discuss, because if we are not discussing these things and finding solutions to them, our education sector will continue to stay as it is, because as Africans, we should be redefining how we teach based on our curriculum, as well as the different approaches we take towards education. I was just going through a post on Facebook from a platform from the platform on Facebook, and a guy mentioned that I can't remember his name. He mentioned that some of the resources given to the government for the educational budget is so low, and I resonated with that, because similar thing is happening here in Liberia. So I was like, we are all facing the same problem, because we're in West Africa, and most of the things that affects us affects everyone. Affects one person, affects everyone, right? So it's amazing to know that we're facing the same problems, and we can work together to see how best we can improve, right? So awesome answer so far. I appreciate you guys for participating. Well, now I have another question. How can we as teachers engage all our students in the teaching and learning process, not just those already engaged and participating. I see Princess you mentioned a question, but here's my question again. Building of educational system that promotes inclusivity. Okay, all right. Inclusivity as regards to the curriculum, making room for language, etc. Great. Language, we'll get there. We are getting there. We're getting there. We'll talk about language as well. It's important. But now let's focus on this question. How can we as teachers engage all our students in the teaching and learning process, not just those already engaged and participating? It's important. Most times teachers, we get carried away by those students who are actively engaged in the learning process, and we forget several other students need to come along. So most times we just focus on those active students and neglect the ones who are really quiet, or the ones who aren't um ready enough to express themselves, right? So we need to understand that if we intend to have a school system that is built on inclusivity, we need to accept everyone for not just where they are educationally, but also giving the opportunity to those who have learning deficiency, as well as disabilities, right? So when we bring all of those things together, then we are building a school system that is safe for learning, and a school system that is ready to encourage all learners, right? So our time, we'll just go straight into what we have, because okay, I have Lavina. Okay, Lavina, provide accessible infrastructure. Great. Yes, we need to provide accessible infrastructure, because imagine if you have a school that is not accessible for individuals with disabilities. How do you expect that person to go in and learn? So it's important for our environment, not just the lesson, but it's important for our environment to be safe for students to access every other space for learning, right? That's awesome. Thank you, Lovina. Now, the next thing I have here is, when classrooms are not intentionally designed to be inclusive, then a few students' voices tend to dominate. Most times we focus on the students who are smart, are really active, who are proactive enough to engage in conversations, and neglect those who aren't involved in the conversations. But now we need to identify that at times we need to take a break. When we take a break and realize several other people are facing struggles with not being able to answer questions because of several other different reasons, maybe we need to take a break now and say it's time for us to give people the opportunity to express themselves. Nowadays in the classroom, we have transitioned to a more student-based learning approach. So how can we get students to participate, and not just allowing the teachers to focus on expressing themselves and not giving students a chance to participate in the lesson? It's important. Great, awesome, Princess, which is awesome, 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 awesome. You guys are making this so easy for me. I like the participation that you're doing in the process, because we are discussing how to include, right? So based on that, we need to always give feedback, as well as check in with students to understand what they know, what idea that they bring to the topic as well. So it's important. So we need to focus on those students who are dominating, to stop them and give others the chance to have their say in the classroom. Is important, right? Great. Now, another question: how can we avoid this, accommodate and avoid each student's unique learning needs? So it's important for us to realize that as think of transitioning to a more inclusive classroom, we should also have it in the back of our minds that these little things are barriers as well that stop us from achieving learning outcomes. So we need to take them into consideration when we start to plan. We should understand it's important to avoid them in order to have a space that is safe for learning, for the learning process. It's important for us to do that. So when we notice, or have identified these things, I have three things that we should focus on: the social economic disparities, the cultural biases, the limited access to resources. Great that we share so far some of the limited to resources as well, which are important for us to mention. Most times teachers are just engaged with students and they don't have the requisite curriculum to deal with. They don't have the necessary textbooks. They don't have the classroom available to teach. They don't have the finances available to teach how they should be able to teach. We need to understand those biases and try to fix them. Right? It's important. We also see cultural biases. Right? In West Africa, we have several tribes. Right? Most times, in order for us to engage students as students, we tend to have them being discussed based on the tribe they speak, based on where they come from, and all of those things are not important within a classroom. What's important is we have students to teach, and we need to teach them so that they learn and be able to apply. Because learning is actually understanding for application. That's the purpose of learning. So we need to consider these biases and take them away. In a country like ours here in Liberia, we have 16 tribes, right? So most times, this becomes an argument: which tribe is better than the other. All of these things are just distraction to the learning process. I understand Nigeria as a whole has a huge range of different tribes, right? That comes from different places and they do things differently. We need to consider these things and take them into consideration as we prepare our lesson, because most times there are individuals who struggling from the biases that we use on them to take them away from the class, and as well individuals who want to come to class but they cannot come to class because of how we've used negative words towards them, right? Always creating an atmosphere of openness, love, equality in the classroom. Great. These are all things that we need to do, because if we teachers are not creating that space where students are able to learn, because students wouldn't learn in a place that no love is shown, right? They should be able to learn. We should be able to create a space where they can learn and be safe enough to do that. Social economic disparities. I don't know for Nigeria the class system that is there, but in Liberia we really don't have a class, because you wouldn't easily identify the poor from the middle class to the rich, right? You wouldn't easily identify that. But however, most times people go about struggling with how they are able to address the learning process, the learning curve. People will charge overboard. People will charge overboard for students who barely afford. Education should be really free, right? Education should be free because of the level of finances that are going into our different governments. And we need to say these things because they are important. Education should be free for all of us to benefit from it, right? So we need to look at those things and consider them very important as we prepare our lesson for students. Another thing we're going to talk about is the definition now of inclusivity. Inclusivity refers to the practice of ensuring that all students, regardless of their backgrounds, abilities, or identities, have access to learning opportunities and resources. All students, be it a Nigerian, a Liberian, a Ghanaian, an American, black, white, disability, inability, struggling student, slow student, fast student, a government official child, a poor market woman child, all students, we should have the opportunity to learn. We should have the resources to learn. It's important for us to enjoy these things because they are given to enjoy them. We shouldn't stop students from benefiting from these things, right? It is our right to benefit from them because we are in a country where education should be provided for us, right? Now, the next definition we want to look at is equity. Equity involves recognizing individual differences and providing the necessary support to ensure that all students can succeed. In our classes, teachers, we focus on the students that we love, which is really bad. I know not all students within the classroom we tend to love, but we should be loving all students because it's incumbent upon us to love these students as we approach the teaching process. The teaching process should be done with love, and it is love that will take students to engaging with teachers, to improving their lifestyle as well. So we need to understand the differences as we need to understand the importance, the importance of involving every individual in our classroom and loving them just how they should be loved and be taught in the classes. Now, some of the things we need to do when we have built equity and inclusivity in our school system, we should remove barriers to education. It's important that we remove barriers, all those barriers that stop us from achieving our goals. We should remove them so that our educational sector can be great. Another thing we need to do is to encourage active engagement from all learners. Most times we tend to just be the sage on the sage on the stage instead of the guy on the side. As teachers, our roles are strictly facilitators of learning, of the learning process. We need to facilitate learning, and in order to facilitate learning, we should guide students in the process. We should lead students to the learning process. We shouldn't be the ones to think that everything that is said and done is going to be done by us, right? We should lead students, guide them in the learning process so that they become better, that they become good citizens, and that they learn to apply the skills that we've taught them. Another thing has to do is support learners to reach their full potential. It's our goal. It's our goal to support learners in every aspect of their lives. So we are ought to focus on learners. We are ought to support fully so that they become great citizens. And if we must achieve this goal, we should not separate people we love from people we hate. This goes across to all students, right? This goes across to all students. So we need to take that into consideration and love students, and love students so that they achieve their full potential. Now, how can we improve inclusivity and equity? How can we improve inclusivity and equity? Let's hear from you what you have to say. Let's hear from you. What do you have to say? Now that we've laid the foundation, we've defined what inclusivity is and as well as equity. Let's learn how can we improve those two things within our school system. Let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. How can we improve them? How can we improve them? It's important for us to know that improving them will get us having an environment that is worthy for learning, right? Improving them will help us have an environment that is worthy for learning. So we need to understand how. How can we improve? How can we improve? Let's have a discussion on that. Let's have a discussion on that to help us. So you mentioned several other things. Some people mention lack of resources. So if just in case I want to speak of lack of resources, we can start to provide more resources in our schools so that we help students to improve, right? That's something we need to do as well. Outdated curriculums, those are things, especially within the African setting. We need to reintroduce curriculums that speak to us as Africans, right? We need to forget these Western curriculums that are brought to us. We need to tell the story, the African story. We need to tell the African story. How can we apply learning to our unique identity? We need to tell the African story because it's important for us. Our students, our students are going to engage based on that process. Kelechi say by being intentional towards the academic growth, thus paying great attention to the peculiarities surrounding their learning and understanding of a subject matter. Great. We need to be intentional. To be intentional. I love that word, Kelechi. Thank you for providing that clarity. I love that word. We need to be intentional. We need to be intentional because it's important for us. If we must improve the sector, we need to be intentional about it. How intentional are we? What can we do to improve? This is very important. This is very important for us. We need to improve. We'll move on. So some of the things we have here that we want to talk about, we need to integrate local languages. We need to integrate local languages. We have several local languages, and in order for students to learn, we need to leave from the formal to the familiar, the familiar to the formal. Sorry, we need to leave from the familiar to the formal. So the familiar language that we speak in Africa is our local languages, right? Right. We need to be able to do that. Asset to students who can learn after that. The next thing we need to do is our traditions. We need to improve. We need to encourage our tradition within school. Our histories. We need to tell the stories, right? The next thing we have to do is to promote policies that support inclusive education. Inclusive education is important because in Africa, one of the things we struggle with is people trying to do things alone. We need to encourage collaboration, support from people. So we need to include that into our school system. The next thing is we need to engage all educational stakeholders. We need to engage the parents. We need to engage the school administrators, the local government, the students, so that this message can be shared. This message is not just for certain people, but it's for every one of us. If we intend to be intentional about this thing, share the message with everybody so that our schools can be improved, the learning process can be changed, and everything around it. The next thing we need to do is to train teachers in special education and provide assistive devices to support students with disabilities, right? Teachers don't have the knowledge of dealing with individuals with disabilities. We need to help these teachers to understand how to deal with several disabilities and inabilities. We need to teach them. We also need to support students with disabilities. It's incumbent upon us to know how to do these things. We need to pair students to encourage and support collaboration. It's important for us to pair students in groups to support collaboration, right? We need to teach based on students' current learning levels. Teaching based on student current learning instead of trying to get students to be more of students that are already improving. We need to teach students who are already at the level that they are at so that they can improve based from that point, right? So let's keep engaging. Let's keep engaging students. So we must be intentional. I like this part. We must be intentional in our efforts to create an inclusive and equitable learning environment at all levels. We must be intentional to we must be intentional in our efforts to create an inclusive and equitable learning environment at all levels. At all levels of education. It shouldn't be at just the lower level, but it should go and improve at the university level, at the community level, at the homes. We need to inclusivity in all levels of education. We need to embrace diversity. We need to utilize different teaching methods and strategies, and we need to address the potential biases as stated previously. This approach to learning not only enhances individual learning outcomes but also contributes to a more just educational system overall. If we do these things, we are going to improve our educational sector. We are going to have an educational sector that is more safe for learning based on whatever individual that is coming to our space and is open for the learning process. Thank you.